So I got a comment from Lily Rose, and she asks, "Hi Ascendor, do you think you could make a video about how to forgive? I think a lot of people have trouble doing it so. I've had a pretty tough life in which many people hurt me or were mean to me or abused me, and I cannot let that go. I've tried to forgive, but nothing is working. Do you have to make a conscious effort to forgive, or just observe and allow it to happen by itself in its own time without a need to forgive? A lot happened in my childhood, and I cannot let go of this resentment and the need for revenge toward the person that abused me. Thank you." So from the moment you were able to have memories, you started to make this story about you and your life, right? So then you created this sense of self. It's a psychological sense of self that feels like this is my life, and it consists of all the memories that you have. And essentially, this psychological self cannot be fulfilled. Some people feel more unfulfilled than others based on what they have experienced. But essentially, it cannot be truly fulfilled as long as it exists. The sense of fulfillment happens when the story ends. And forgiveness sometimes is almost like an act that you do, not because you actually forgive the person, because you understand that the person wasn't conscious, but you do it because you want to liberate yourself from this miserable feeling that you carry within. So, and forgiveness usually happens, or real forgiveness happens, not because you want to liberate yourself from the feeling that you don't want to feel anymore. Because if you forgive with that motive, then that means that you actually still have emotions that you don't want to let go of. So, and that's not real forgiveness, It's real forgiveness means that you understand that this person was just acting out of their conditioning. And this forgiveness, it just happens with no motive. It just comes out of a natural understanding. It doesn't happen because you want something from forgiving someone. So usually what people do is they feel resentment towards someone who has abused them. Then they forgive. And then they're like, why am I not feeling better? So what you're actually looking for is just the liberation from this feeling, the liberation from the identification with the person that has been abused. We could say that that's real forgiveness. And in order to do so, you have to let go of the story of yourself. Now, I want to make it very practical. The meditation in which you allow everything just to be is, we could say, is the non-dual meditation, where you recognize that the awareness that is aware of thoughts and anything is not located in the head, that it is one with the experience. But if the experience is resentment, then the awareness is also just one with that. So the awareness is also just one with the resentment and all the thoughts, and then you can wait. Of course, maybe something could happen, a miracle. But in this case, this is just my tip for you. Consciously put your awareness on what's actually real. Because when you are aware of the sounds, of your sensations, it would be best to put it on a neutral object, then the parts in your brain that are that have been conditioned to constantly tell you the story that you have been abused, they start to atrophy. So that's basically, like Eckhart Tolle calls it, present moment meditation. You just become aware of what's actually real so that you're not stuck in the story in your mind. So then the story comes to an end, and then what happens is the story in your mind is no longer so interesting after a while. It's no longer, it's just it's not an intellectual understanding that you can now say it's just a story and it's just all a mental idea, but it's an actual experience that you have, that you are really literally no longer interested in the mental story that you have about you and what happened to you, because you recognize that it's not you that has been hurt. It was the psychological image that you had of yourself that has been hurt and that you believed in, which is why it seemed to be such a real experience. But when you are becoming present and you recognize that actually the very thing that is present, which is who you really are, has never been hurt, then you start to discard the false story that you had about yourself. And then it's also even easier to forgive the person who abused you, because you recognize also who they truly are is the same awareness, the unconditioned awareness. And the reason why they acted in this way is because they couldn't help it. It was just their conditioning. They couldn't help it in the same way that you, up till now, were not able to help yourself with your feeling of resentment. Maybe they were trying to get rid of their tendencies, but they just didn't know how, because it's just so deeply interwoven in their brain, just like your resentment towards them. So it's like some people know that they're behaving in a way that's not good, but they just don't know how to get rid of it. So normally when we're unconscious, the awareness is one with the story, and everything that's outside of the story feels like outside. But when you are putting your whole attention on what's actually real, for example, if you listen, in this attention, you, the awareness, is one with the experience of whatever's being listened to. So it's no longer trapped in the psychological self. And that's when the brain starts to realize, oh, the story's over. There's no happy end. Maybe you're looking for reconciliation with the person. Some part of you is like, wants to have a happy ending, or wants the person to say sorry, to have a happy ending. The psyche is always looking for a happy end. Meditation shows you that this is not necessary. It is done, and you're actually no longer angry towards the actual person, because in reality the person right now, as you're watching this video, is not here. You're angry at an image that you have of them, and it's only the image that is actually present right now in your psyche. But when you're totally present and aware of this present moment, then the whole energy of your brain goes into the attention, and therefore the brain doesn't have any energy left to put it into the story. So that's when the story starts to become, it's no longer interesting. So then you become more and more interested in what's actually real, and then you realize the awareness that is aware of what's actually real, has never been hurt. It was just a story. And then people often say, I forgive, but I don't forget. But it's more like you forget, and therefore it's like naturally you forgive. Like when you're present, there's no need to put in mental, brain capacity. There's no need to put in mental energy into remembering what happened, because it's just no longer needed. Because you're here, the story is over. But your brain doesn't understand that yet, so you have to teach your brain that it's over by being present. And when you are present and present and present, and you bring yourself back and you're here, then slowly your brain learns, oh, it's over. And then it just becomes just a memory, but it doesn't have this emotional charge. You see? That's basically it. And then forgiveness can happen afterwards, where you're like consciously choosing to say, I forgive this person because now I understand that they have just acted out of their conditioning. They couldn't help it. It wasn't personal against me. It was just their twisted, distorted way of seeing life that caused them to do whatever they couldn't stop themselves to do. But you don't have to be a victim of your conditioning, because you have the ability to be aware of what's actually real. To be aware of what's actually real. And this doesn't mean that you're supposed to suppress your emotions. When you're aware, then you can also be aware of the emotions that are here. And then that's even more healing, because normally when we have negative emotions, we immediately start to tell a story about these feelings, about these emotions, how negative they are, how much we wish that they would go away, and that actually feeds them. When you are present, then you can see that the emotion is also just something that appears in this present moment. It's not something that is supposed to go away. It is just a part of the present moment that is welcome. So you can also use that as an object of awareness and just feel it, be aware of it. Don't have to get lost in it. You can be aware. Basically, you don't have to focus on any particular object, because that would be concentration. Awareness is more like open, and there's no choice in what you're aware of, as long as you're aware of what's actually real. When you're a little bit more advanced in meditation, you can also be aware of your thoughts, because when you can use thoughts as meditation objects, that's when you already recognize that thoughts are not that important. They don't have actual meaning. So be present. To teach your brain that the story is over. And then naturally you will forgive and recognize that you, who you essentially are, wasn't hurt. It was the image of you. And when the brain thinks that the image that it has of itself is a real thing, then of course the emotions also feel real. That's the thing. So I hope this helped. If some of you have questions, please write them in the comments, and have a great day.